Whether it's work or play, the Japanese have a reputation for throwing themselves with a vengeance into everything they do. And in the case of Japan's favourite sport, sumo wrestling, throwing is the operative word. Take two giants with bellies as big and as hard as a pot-bellied stove, put them in a tiny ring, and you're off on a short but jolting fantasy trip back into Japanese history. Understand a bit about sumo, and you can get some intriguing insights into the character of a people whose future seems more and more tied in with ours. Some promoters are even thinking of bringing a sumo troupe out to Australia. You can judge for yourself whether you have the stomach for it. You could just about wrap up two of our football players in one of these sumo bodies. In a moment, we'll try to explain some of these antics. But for now, just think of it as two locomotives trying to ram each other off the track. Nothing much has changed in 500 years, and maybe that's why the Japanese fans love it so much. Sumo takes them back to the good old days of honour and personal glory.
The thing I like about sumo that got me into sumo is the initial tachiai, the initial charge, hitting each other like football.
But one of the best known of the wrestlers turns out to be about as Japanese as apple pie. He's Jesse Kualua, who came here from Hawaii. One of the hardest decisions of his life, he says, was giving up his American citizenship to become a Japanese.
It took me 5 years to finally decide that I'm going to be a Japanese national, because I wanted to keep my American citizenship. The main reason why I did this because my love for sumo, because I feel that I'm part of sumo. I want to be with sumo all the way.
There are no shortcuts to the top in this game, and only about 1 in 100 will ever get to be a national hero. It's training every morning, 7 days a week, and the discipline is harsh, to our eyes, maybe even cruel. There are two ways to get into trouble: if you break the rules of the stable, or if you're not working hard enough. A sumo stable is a bit like a boarding school run along medieval lines. No boarding school was ever as tough as this. Takasago is the stable master, and Mito Izumi is one of his boarders. He's getting all this stick only because they like him so much. They think he can go a long way, so they're toughening him up with traditional sumo encouragement.
Well, this is called a shinai, but it's not that. So, did it hurt?
No, it didn't.
This is what we call a shinai, right? It doesn't hurt, but it stings.
But you hit him harder than that.
Well, you need a lot of encouragement. What I mean by encouragement is by roughing up.
You rough him up?
Yes, and that's one way of building his fighting spirit.
It's a strange way of being kind to the guy, but you're saying you're doing him a favour.
Yes.
But what about the man himself? What does Mito Izumi think about all this? Through our interpreter, he made it clear he's prepared to put up with the sumo brand of encouragement.
It hurts, and he feels he's got to try harder so that he won't be hit for doing things wrong. But, you know, it's necessary.
I've seen them work until they're exhausted, and then they'll put mud in their mouth and salt in their eyes.
Andy Adams has been writing about sumo for 20 years. He's the editor of a magazine called Sumo World. Do any wrestlers ever quit under that kind of pressure?
Oh, yes. There's a lot of wrestlers, especially when they first join a stable. And I know that in one stable, 10 or 12 walked out because of unnecessarily harsh treatment.
In a sumo stable, everything depends on your rank. Young wrestlers fetch and carry for the older ones. Hairdressers do their hair, but younger wrestlers do all the rest. They dress them, they help them bath, they cook their meals and run their messages. When you're a beginner, you're as much a servant as a wrestler in training. It's all part of the discipline of sumo.
Well, it's the discipline. It's waking up early in the morning, training, and doing the older wrestler chores like washing clothes or bathing the wrestler, cooking for him. That is a very hard thing to do.
How long you'll cook and wash for someone else depends on how well you do in the doyo, the sumo tournament ring. A wrestler's rank depends on how many bouts he wins and who he beats. These tournaments are really grading trials. They also happen to be spectacles for the fans. The tournaments are crammed with ritual. You make a special sign before accepting the prize money, and you cleanse the ring of evil spirits by throwing salt into it. In this ring, there's no count of 10. To win, you either push your opponent out of the ring or make him touch the ground with even a fingertip or an elbow. Unlike boxing or Western wrestling, there are no weight limits, no divisions in sumo. No lightweights, welterweights or middleweights, which means you could find yourself fighting someone twice your weight and size. These are no street bullies. They're young sumo wrestlers breaking in a new apprentice. Sasarushi is only 15, and this roughing up out on the street is part of his training. But how does a 15-year-old apprentice like Sasarushi get to be one of those giants by the time he's 20? Sumo wrestlers eat 4, maybe 5 times as much as the ordinary Japanese. They don't eat breakfast, but they sure make up for it at lunchtime. And what's for lunch today? As much chunka nabe as you want. Meat, fish, cabbage, onions, soya sauce and sugar. All mixed up in a kind of stew. Jesse may devour 5 or 6 bowls of it, and just as much rice again, all washed down with crates of beer. Then he'll sleep on it. And that's what goes to make those magnificent stomachs.
You can't really put them down as just being a lot of fat slobs. They're not at all. They're very, very strong. The Japanese sort of admire this great, huge towers of strength that these wrestlers represent. And you can see them looking in awe as they tour through the countryside sometimes in between the tournaments. And the farmers and the fishermen, and they just love these great, big, strong wrestlers.
And this is where all that food we saw comes in handy. It keeps up the layer of fat that helps cushion the falls. It's like a flashback to ancient Japan. Every day of a tournament, the top wrestlers keep alive a ritual centuries old. They promise the gods to fight fairly and with the proper spirit. These are the men who keep a distant past alive and prospering in the world's most electronic society. Sumo pulls a television audience of 20 million and double that when the champions fight for the title. But you don't have to be a champion to make your fortune from sumo on TV. At 38, Jesse is the old man of sumo wrestling. He may never get to be grand champion, but to millions of Japanese, he's a household name, the most recognized face in the business. A face that sells everything from spark plugs to office computers.
Jesse!
また夢ね。
夢いっぱいのサンルーム。
日鉄冊子の
And this is where the years of training, the toughening up, and all that eating finally pay off. When you reach the top and you become one of the sumo kings of Japan. To a lot of us, they may seem just big, fat men, lumbering giants shoving each other around in a ring. But to their fans, they're skilled technicians, masters of the art of sumo. After all, without sumo, Japan just wouldn't seem the same.
Hello, I'm Liz Hayes. Thanks for watching. To keep up with the latest from 60 Minutes Australia, make sure you subscribe to our channel. You can also download the 9 Now app for full episodes and other exclusive 60 Minutes content.